And there we go. And what we've been doing is putting these into like a content folder on More Good Jobs too. So as people sort of are coming in and trying to look for more education on their businesses and stuff, that stuff is there. So we're starting to see a good amount of interest kind of post-event on the recordings for these sorts of things too. So
okay, fabulous.
And for what it's, just to not be redundant, but still thank you for taking the time to do this stuff. I really do appreciate it. I know a lot of entrepreneurs will as well. So thank you.
Yeah, I might steal it and put it in our archives too, James, if you don't mind. Because
absolutely. We are pro entrepreneur. That is the goal. So no problem whatsoever sharing everything total open source. So
and vice versa.
Awesome. Well, hoping. Oh, great. I'm glad to hear that. So, I mean, maybe in we'll hopefully some more people will start to trickle in as we get going. But we are recording, so I mean, if you're open for it, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Sure. I actually prepared a couple of slides to introduce Mower and things, but I'm not sure if I really need to do that if it's just us. So,
like I said, there'll be other people who will view the recording afterwards.
Okay.
Probably a much larger number. So feel free to. Please.
Okay, great. I will go ahead and do that then, because it helps to sort of set up a bit about really my philosophy and Mower's philosophy on branding, which I think is really going to be a good part of the discussion. I intended this to be pretty interactive, but I will start with just that idea of kind of just giving a little bit of background about Mower. And annoyingly, because of my dual monitor, I can't go totally full screen on this or it'll screw up the sharing of the screen. So I will just make this a little bit bigger. So just a little bit about Mower. I'm Stephanie Crockett. I'm the President and Chief Operating Officer at Mower, which is an integrated marketing communications firm. And I'm based out of our Syracuse, New York office, which is sort of the unofficial headquarters of Mower. It's where Eric started the agency 53 years ago. And we have 9 locations technically, but we have professionals now over the last several months and the last year or two have really built out a team of people that are in markets well beyond these 9. So we have a concentration of professionals in Chicago, in Miami, and in some other cities. So we're one consolidated bottom line. We're one company. Every office works together. There's not one piece of business or client that we work on that isn't serviced by multiple offices and people across the network. So this is sort of just a loose indication of where we are, but our clients are global and our professionals are really all over the US. As an integrated agency, we have multiple disciplines that we operate in and that we perform for our clients. Everything from web development all the way through to public relations, advertising, and everything in between. So we have an in-house insight and analytics team, which includes market research, which really helps to sort of set the stage. I always say that we are a very strategic first agency. We have incredible award-winning creative, but that is made possible through the incredible insights and strategy that comes from our team. The strategy and account management, which is really the role that I sort of have grown up with. I started Mower 17 years ago as an account manager and lead the client service function at the agency. And that role really is all of that client engagement. It's how we get our projects done. It's the relationships with the fabulous partners that we have. And that team really sets the stage and leads that. Communication planning really falls into media buying and planning. We do all of that in-house. And again, that's everything from social media, paid search, to all things media. design and branding, all of the amazing work our creative team does, creative ideation, so concepting, if it's about developing a new logo or naming a product or a company, all the way through to developing TV spots that appear nationally in broadcast. We create all of that, as well as all kinds of digital media, and which goes into our digital and direct team. We are developers. We are masters of marketing, automation, and direct marketing. So for a lot of our clients that are really trying to accomplish specific goals or sell their widget, this is the team that really works very hard to help make that happen, along with all the others. On the social media front, it's both on the advertising side as well as on the organic side. We establish social media platforms, strategize, create content, post, act as the brand for our clients. And so social media, as we know, has just become such a critical component of marketing and communication between brands and their customers. So it's a critical piece of what we do. We also have an extensive team, one of the top teams in the country in both public relations and public affairs, which really sort of morph together. Public relations is all things on the earned media side. So as we're trying to get press and coverage for our team, and social media, of course, plays a role there. And on the public affairs side, that's everything from helping to cite projects for renewable clients, where we're looking at transmission lines or wind farms or solar farms. Those are the kind of things that our team does on the public affairs side. We are not lobbyists, but we do everything basically just short of that effort. And all of these disciplines work together hand in hand. Eric Mower is one of the leading founders of integrated marketing, and we continue to have that as a key pillar of who we are as an agency. So we know that bringing all of these things together really helps to articulate and express a brand in the best way possible. So it's not all of these things kind of working as individual entities, but they all work together. We have a few key specialties as an agency that we have become experts in fields. Energy and sustainability, which is actually the specialty team that I lead. I spend most of my day talking with clients in the utility and renewable space, everything from energy efficiency to billing services for utility clients to helping sell solar arrays on people's homes. So we have a lot in the energy space. And as I mentioned, that includes helping developers site projects. And in the energy space, we also work in the oil and gas industry as well. We have clients in the financial, so banks and others. Travel and tourism is a significant aspect of our business locally here. Turning Stone and United Nation Enterprises is a very big client for us. They're incredible, incredible partners. And so we do a lot from airlines all the way to destinations. In healthcare, we work on both the payer and the provider side. We have a specialty in selling brands to new moms. So, and all of the brands that entails, from cleaning products to things for the household, for babies, and for the moms themselves. That's always been a really important aspect of what we've been able to sell for some of our clients, like Mattel and Fisher Price and so many others. Building and construction, and a specialty in electrical, and really talking to all of both trades as well as consumers in that space. Automotive, which encompasses things like the work we've done for Freightliner, which is one of the largest truck companies in the world, to our relationship with Ford, as well as things in the supply chain, including longstanding, probably 30-year relationship with FedEx. And then all things on the business to business side. So this represents at least 50% of our business. We are B2B sort of specialists and experts. And some examples of the clients that I just mentioned are really in this slide. And there's so many more behind this. This is just some of the select clients that we work with. And as you can see, some pretty cool brands. So we're here to talk about branding, and for that, I always like to sort of start conversations about this, really understanding and helping people kind of get the sense of like, what does a brand mean, and how would you define that? And I think one of the most important things that we look at is that branding is really about people as it was about anything else. So I thought it'd be fun to ask everybody to kind of put 3 words in the chat that describe you. Or if you were to ask your friends or your colleagues or your spouse, maybe they'd all use different words, but If you had 3 words that described you, what would those be? And put them in the chat. And I'll stop screen sharing for a minute so we can look at each other.
That was 3 words that describe you as a person. Is that right,
Yes.
Steph?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh boy. You set a tough challenge. Oh, good. Some more people pop in.
James, you're thinking really hard about this.
I know. It's the pressure's on.
Yeah.
Because you're going to correct me if I'm wrong.
There's no wrong answer. Okay. These are all great words. You guys are making my job easy, which I like. I'm just going to jot some of these down. Actually, I have the record here, so I'm just going to do that. Okay, so keep this in mind. I don't know if you guys are looking at the chat. I can share it on my shared screen here. Hello, Emily. Thanks for joining. Okay, thank you for doing that. So now here's my next question. This is going to be verbal, so no need to put it in the chat. I will share my screen again. A moment. I'm so used to using Teams that going from platform to platform, it's like you have to remind yourself how to use the different ones. Okay. How do you define branding? So I'm going to call on you first, James, because you took too long to answer my three things question. So put you on the spot. How would you define branding?
Oh, wow. Good question. I think a good way defining it is actually how does the public or your market define you in their mind?
Mm-hmm.
Not so much how you want yourself positioned as much as how other people position you in their mind.
Cool. Thank you. Megan?
I'd say extending from that, like from the outside in, just definitely a feeling of it, an expression of the organization. And you know, when we're trying to get our brand out there, we think a lot about culture, and we talk a lot about our culture and how we want to serve our customers, how that's going to, you know, come together through our different channels.
Great. Hugo, how would you
I would define it as creating a new identity.
Nice. Okay, Emily, I know you're not on video, but I'm hoping you might be able to participate.
Yeah, it's a little windy because I'm outside right now, but I would say it's the face that your business has that you use to connect to the general public, like to your audience and everything like that.
All right.
Kind of your way of demoing who you are and what your business is.
Yep, love it. Okay. David?
Yeah, actually the words that I was going to use have actually both been said already, but the company's public identity.
Okay. And Lana, I know you just, I don't know if she's on or not. For somebody that she's kind of having a little connection problem. Okay, we'll move on then. Thank you guys. Thanks for answering that. I think, you know, one of the key things that people think about is that it's a logo, right? And even when I was just doing a little bit of research and prepping for today, there was like a definition in this article that's like, well, it's creating a mark for yourself. And I'm like, man, this is so wrong. That is not what it is at all. And I'm so glad none of you said that, because it's obviously goes well beyond that. And when you think about branding and what those various ways to sort of help you express that, I thought this was a really kind of good comprehensive list of tools, right? Because branding absolutely goes beyond that. And it's your purpose, right? So there's a lot of different ways when we're working with clients and they ask us to help with branding. We have clients that ask us all the time to help us create a logo or create a product. But when you're thinking about the brand, it goes well beyond that, right? It's about who am I? How am I expressing myself? Exactly what you guys said, the expression of the organization, the face that your business has, that you want to connect, really giving a way and understanding and really sort of defining and giving that brand and that company a personality to a degree, right? Which we'll get back to that because it's really about the ways when you guys were answering the question about how you would describe yourselves or how people may describe you, because brands are just that. They're like personalities. So there's so many different tools that you can use when you're developing a brand. It's brand definition, right? What are the purpose? What are your values? What is your promise? This is very common to be sort of like an HR exercise and mission statements and those kind of things, right? We're very familiar with those and going through those exercises. So brand positioning statement is really about sort of that expression of what all of that means. And the identity, the brand identity, and Hugo, because you're in this business and you understand marketing very well, and you understand that it's about creating a new identity. And I know you meant that beyond just the physical piece of the identity, but that is absolutely a piece of it, right? It's an expression. If you think about even the presentation you're looking at that I'm presenting, our position as an agency is around this notion of fierce friendship. And so our color palette for us is modernity. It's about, there's a bit of a dial up of it, right? Because it's a little bit about who we are. So those notions of what your logo is like and what your color palette, the typographies, all of those things that you use are an expression of that because they are a reflection of yourself. I'm sure at some point in life, you may have thought, especially as entrepreneurs, creating a logo for yourself or for your business or your company. It's very much about who you are. So I wouldn't want something that felt retro, because that's not really a piece of who I am as an individual, but there are some people that retro really fits for them. And so you can imagine them using a color palette or a typography that's representative. So there's a lot of rhyme or reason to design and that aspect of the brand. So while it's not the only aspect, it is another form of that expression. And then, of course, the ways that you're bringing that to life when you're promoting the brand and doing the outreach. So all of the advertising and communication, all of those things, again, of course, are expressions of that brand. And that manifests itself in so many other ways, in the sponsorships, in your package design, in things like the in-store experience, if you're talking a retail product, your workspace experience and the management style, right? Your brand should be reflected in the way that you treat each other and the way that you behave. I actually just had a call with a couple of my colleagues as we're talking about making sure that throughout Mower that we have a real articulation and that feeling of, for us, our brand identity throughout all aspects. So every engagement that you have, we've been hiring a lot of employees. So how do we make sure, and it's really critical for all people to think about that they're understanding who we are as a brand from that get-go. My sister just started a new job in commercial real estate. She lives and works in Boston. And I happened to be visiting her. I was in town for a conference and she was going through all of her onboarding. And of course, it's all being done virtually and she's working remotely. And her company has done an incredible job of really helping you get a sense of who they are as a company through some presentations, through video. And as a new employee, it's like a way to make her understand, like, hey, these are the kind of people that I'm working for. And she felt that already through the recruitment process. But for her to have a new employee, like those are the kind of things where you think that every interaction that you have as a company, that is it, whether with your employees or for your customers, should all really kind of sing the brand and be really based in that brand platform. And of course, that means things like customer service. So every interaction that you have, if somebody calls because they need to return something, or because of the world that I work in, the utility brands, customer service is very important for the perception of that particular brand. If you're calling National Grid because you have a situation and you're on hold for 45 minutes, certainly impacts the brand, right? And for them as a company, very important for their customers to feel like they are there for ease of use, that they make things easy, they make things better for them, that they need to work on, like any brand does, on making sure that every single experience for the customer really shows who they are as an organization. Anything that I'm missing here? Anything that you guys think about when it comes to branding that are expressions of that aren't listed here?
No, I'll just say I'm really glad you talked about the customer service and the importance of looking at every aspect of what we do. I think that's huge, especially obviously we're a client serving organization where this will,
Right.
when they walk
Right.
through the door or call, that first touch could be everything, especially if they come from a background where perhaps trauma was a part of their experience in their life and they're coming
Sure.
through the doors with that. So if they don't get that warm greeting, that could make
For
a
sure.
really big difference.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks for that, Megan.
I'm wondering, I guess as we're looking through this, I don't want to go off topic or go off, the script or out of order for you. But as I'm thinking about this, like, I'm wondering within that context, if you can talk about some of the things that tend to really help differentiate the standout brands from the people who maybe are trying really hard but haven't been able to achieve it, if you know what I mean.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. Not off topic or not off brand. I think we can kind of shift forward just a little bit. One of the things that I was so happy to hear Emily say is when she talked about the face that your business has that you use to connect. And she said, demoing who you are. And it was like a straight pickup, which when I said, you guys are making my job easy when you gave me the 3 words, but also in these answers, because brands demonstrate, right? And if you look at some of the most iconic brands in the world, these are some of them, right? And I intentionally used photos of the fact that people literally tattoo these brands on themselves. Now, these are kind of crazy. We actually have worked for many, many years locally with Kraus Health, and Kraus logo identity, take me to Kraus. You guys have probably heard that expression before. Our creative team came up with that a couple of decades ago, created their logo. And there was a man who had such a experience, frankly, a life-saving experience, that he tattooed the Kraus logo and take me to Kraus on his chest, which of course for our team is like the end all be all of like, you've done your job well. For him, it was so meaningful because of the care that he received there. Had he heard that brand and had he heard that slogan and gone to the hospital, whether or not they saved his life, but had they treated him poorly or had to deal with annoying billing situation, you can guarantee there would be no tattoo. And it was because of the way that they demonstrated that. So you think about a company like John Deere, and everybody knows the passion, right? I have family down in the southern tier. It's actually my husband's family. And it is like John Deere country. And if anybody shows up with a red tractor, it is like, get off my land. You do not belong here. They are so passionate about this brand. And it's one of the most remarkable brands. But what I love about it is that because like any brand that is doing things right, it's not because the product is superior, which it is in their minds. I don't know anything about tractors, so one would assume they're fine. But they have a superior product, but it's also about what they've become and what they've done for the people that they serve. So I have to go into presentation mode for a moment here. Forgive me. Shoot. In order for me to pull up this link, sorry. And I'll have to, can you see my screen or no? You're still seeing the same?
No, we can see it.
You can see the website?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I pulled up this particular page of John Deere because they talk about their higher purpose, right? And they know that people are tattooing them on themselves, but they think about their principles and their purpose as an organization. Part of what they do is because they know that the audiences that they serve, they know the communities that they serve. They think about the people that are their customers or very often their employees, right? They are thinking about those audiences of people who are farmers. They invest in those communities. They give back specifically to areas that matter to them. Sustainability is hugely important in agriculture. And so that's a big part of what they do. So as they think about how they're demonstrating that brand, not only is it a commitment to making phenomenal products and providing experiences for John Deere lovers to connect and communicate, but the way that they're demonstrating who they are as a brand is connecting to them on that level because it's what their customers care about. So they're demonstrating their brand value beyond just quality product, but also in the way that they are showing up for the communities that are their most beloved customers. Another example of a brand like that is Harley Davidson, which again, one of the most beloved brands, probably the most tattooed brand in the world. And they are all about adventure and quality, right? Like if you're a Harley driver, everybody else is like, do not pull up with like a Japanese sport bike next to a Harley driver, right? It's just a very different culture and a different appreciation for quality. And for them, Harley Davidson is all about the freedom that gives to people, right? They've really got to the heart of it. So for them, what they're bringing to life is that notion of, and I love their mission, more than building machines, we stand for the timeless pursuit of adventure, freedom for the soul. Like genius, absolutely genius. And it's a brand that has done it so well. And the reason that they've done it so well is because they've got to the heart of who their customer is. So differentiation in branding is not just about, am I making a better product or is my logo better or the way I'm expressing it better? It's really about the fact that the only way that you do that is by getting to know who your customer is through and through. And without those insights, you're never going to be able to think about freedom for the soul, right? Like that is something by talking with people that are like, I just get on my bike and I ride. And I don't think about work. I don't think about my sick parent. I don't think about whatever, right? It gives me freedom for my soul to have adventure and be out on the road. And I just happen to do that with a piece of machinery that is the best in the world. So it's about thinking through that kind of getting into that point of who your customer is. And I can share a little bit about how we do that as a company. And so when I was asking you guys before about kind of how you describe yourselves, and Sean McCarthy, could you please mute? Sorry, just like a little bit of feedback. Thinking about how brands really sort of determine, this is the philosophy that we have as a company called Brand is Friend. And for us, it's really based on the notion that there are like, brands are, like I said earlier, it's about personalities. So when you define a brand like a John Deere, and when you guys talked about how you defined yourselves and described yourselves, right? I'm going to bring up that chat real quick. You talked about loyalty and integrity, and you talked about, well, James talked about being sarcastic, but the way that you described yourselves, right? Diverse and intense and all of those things, those are all the same type of things. When you think about loyalty, those are ways that you describe people, and those are still the factors that define brands. And if you think about it like people, which is why we refer to it as brand as friend, our job is to create fierce friendships, not only internally between ourselves as employees, but also for our customers and for our clients and for the customers that they serve. So when you have fierce friendship, that is what drives brand loyalty, right? Like you all in our lives, whether it's a significant other, a best friend, a sibling, someone, we all have our like ride or dies, right? Like, sorry, decline a call. We all have our like ride or die people that are that because we have a fierce friendship based on things that are shared with them. And when you think about friends and you think about those things that really define friendships, we kind of bucket it into three areas. It's affection, relevance, and trust. And when you think about it, and the important factors of a relationship, it's that sometimes you surprise each other, that you've got a style or a story. One of the other brands that I put up earlier that people tattoo is the Apple brand. There is very few brands that have a style that's more distinctive. If you think about a brand like Target also the same thing. There's something really powerful and different about their style. And that is very much, if you're an Apple lover, it's partly because you love the cleanliness, the modernity. Like that is such a cool style. And people relate to that because it's who they are. It's something that speaks to them. So when you're thinking about those relationships that you have and you want, it's trust is an important aspect. You guys use that word when you described it yourselves. Loyalty. We go to our friends for advice. We go to them for counsel. That's what we're looking for brands to do. And so when we think about positioning your brands, we think about it through these lenses and say, okay, how is it that we are telling the story of this brand, which then helps, and how is that relevant to our customers, right? So when you're thinking about the Harley Davidson brand and they tell the story about who founded that, who leads it, what's important to them, what makes them move, those things have to be relevant to their customers that are the most important to them. So when you think about how you're defining your brand and what makes that truly different, the only way to get there is through understanding those customers and how you can show up for them as a fierce friend. I'll pause there for a second. Any questions or thoughts on that? I thought I would just sort of use myself as an example because that's easier than picking on you guys the whole time. So as I mentioned earlier, and this is where we kind of went a little bit out of order, but that's okay. So thinking about personal brands, and you guys kind of talked about you and that notion of demonstration. So this is just a little snapshot into Stephanie Crockett. Because as people, and as if you were to meet me, or if you're my friend and you were to ask, or somebody asked you about me, they would probably give you some words to describe me, but part of that would be based on my experiences, my interests, what I love, what I do, what I care about, who I am, that are all demonstrations of me as an individual. So the fact that I spend my time with my friends, I am a very loyal, like I got my girl squads, like that is very much a part of my life. It's a critical component to what makes me happy, how I spend my time, my buddies that I go hiking with and traveling with, and all of those things. That's part of what makes me who I am, and it's a demonstration of that. I spend a lot of time doing, volunteer work in the community. I spent a lot of years working with the Landmark Theater. I sit on a couple of different boards now. United Way, I chair that board, and Women United, and the group of women on the right, we launched Women United. That was a really critical piece. And for me, it's very much I grew up in a house with 3 sisters. I have a very girl power type of piece of my identity. And so I just show this to say that when you're thinking about brands, it's important not only for what you say, but what you do. So it's got to be in that demonstration, right? So I demonstrate my personal brand by the way that I spend my time. And I'm not a company, so you're not thinking necessarily about your customer experience with me, right? But that is a piece of it. So if somebody's reaching out to me because they need help or they need service or they need just me to lend a hand or just to talk or something, the way that I respond and react, and that's my notion of customer service. And so the same things apply to brands when you think about the qualities of the people in your life and the relationships. And when you think about those closest friends and those fierce friends you have, think about your brand and your company brand in those ways. Like, what is it that you love about your best friend or about your sibling or your sister or your colleague, the people that you think of as really representing those great relationships, and those are the type of relationships that you want to have with your customers, then those are the type of things that may fall under these categories of caring and listening and style and advising and honesty, because those are all the characteristics of friends and thus the characteristics of brands. One of the other things that I always like to talk about, and again, we talked about this a little bit in the demonstration piece. For me, this is like a pillar of who I am, and it's something that I've learned over time. There's this notion of the golden rule where they always talk about treat others how you want to be treated. And I worked with a leadership coach for a long time who is a good friend, very, very dear friend of mine. And he taught me the platinum rule, which is that treat others the way they would like to be treated. It is probably the number one thing of my leadership style and how I approach things. It really doesn't matter what I want or what I think or what it's really about the other person and how I help them get what they need and what they want and what they think, and how we connect that to the goals as a company. But it's really about treating people the way that they want to be treated, not that you do. So for me, that's a big demonstration of who I am as an individual, the way that John Deere and Harley Davidson and Apple kind of show up for their customers. Apple is a fascinating brand because they have such a brand loyalty. And I'll see if I can bring up this link. I'm not sure if I can. Okay. Why are you not letting me do this? Maybe if I control. Sorry, because I'm out of presentation mode. One moment. Give me a second and I will do this. Okay. So the Apple brand is so powerful that they not only have very strong expectations for themselves, especially in the realm of sustainability, but they also have the same expectations of all of the people that do business with them. So if you are going to be an Apple supplier, they hold you to the same type of standards in health, safety, sustainability, all of those things. Walmart is a very similar type of brand. Now, they may do that because it helps their own reputation, but it's such a critical piece. And for Apple, they're like, we only want to do business with people that hold themselves to the same kind of standards. So we're going to hold them to those standards. So if you want to be an Apple supplier, and doesn't everyone, you have to be at the same level of commitment to safety, health, sustainability, et cetera. So it's just a critical way that this particular brand, and really interesting way that they have shown the demonstration of who they are as a company. And they do it not only through their own interactions with their customers, but with the interactions they have with the vendors and the people that they do business with. And so that, I think, is really interesting too. When you think about brands that differentiate, it's those ones that have a purpose that, again, is sort of that 360-degree view. And you had mentioned this a little bit earlier, Megan, about that notion of customer experience, and it's got to go both ways, right? As a company, we buy a lot of things, right? We buy media all the time. If our media team didn't treat the reps from 93Q or from the radio stations or TV stations or Facebook or whatever the places we're spending our money, if they didn't treat them well and they didn't express our brand, that would be a failure in our brand experience. So those are the kind of things that we think about. And this is a way that Apple is really like put a stake in the ground and said, if you want to be part of us, then this is a great demonstration of them as a brand and how they're really taking a very 360 approach to it. So those are all the things that I had to share, but would love to talk more and answer questions that you guys may have about your own branding experiences, or how to really bring this to life for your companies.
I'll kick it off for you, Steph. I'm curious. A lot of the things we've talked about are largely consumer brands. I wonder if you could make some commentary in a more business to business setting. How?
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. It's a great question, James. As I mentioned earlier, B2B is a huge part of what we do as an agency. So it's the brand is friend mantra is very clear. We always talk about that we make business to business, people to people, because the reality is in a B2B world, people think that there needs to be less of that emotional connection, and disagree, right? There are still people that are buying your product, right? So whether or not they're buying it for their business or they're buying it for themselves, they're still solving a problem. You're still having to relate to them and have a connection and a story and a loyalty piece of that, right? So let's take our client, Pass and Seymour. They basically make electrical components, right? So they sell our product to electricians. Our client, LG Solar, sells their panels to installers. It's as important for them to think about that brand experience that they have. And again, the expression of how their customer experience is. But there is somebody at the other end of that phone who's picking it up and saying, okay, I'm a contractor and I have my own challenges. I need somebody who's going to make this easy, who's going to streamline the process, who's going to help me with supply chain issues, who's going to XYZ, right? So I think the mistake that a lot of companies make is when they are in B2B, they don't think that there's an emotional component, but that friendship is equally as important because you're still selling to a person, right? So the way that those brands are expressed, John Deere is absolutely a B2B brand, right? You're selling to large farmers and conglomerates. You're selling to corporations. You're selling as Harley Davidson. There may be some products that they're selling in that case. Apple absolutely is a big B2B brand. So it doesn't change the fact that there's the way that they're kind of articulating that value to that audience may be a little bit different because they want to make sure they're hitting on those pain points. But it goes back to what we were talking earlier about. The best way to express a brand is by understanding who that customer is. And you may have 5 different customer sets, right? Every client, there's some kind of segmentation. Every Apple purchaser doesn't look the same, right? I have a 75-year-old girlfriend who is a diehard Harley Davidson rider. And then one of my best friends who's 37 is a diehard Harley Davidson guy, right? Very different people. He's like Mr. Technology. She's like 8 martinis a day, thank you. Like very different people, but they're both Harley customers. So you're understanding kind of who those segments are. And the same thing applies in a B2B space, right? So when you're John Deere and you're selling to a CFO because you're trying to convince them to that you need to buy their equipment for your factory farm, or you are the guy who's the actual farmer who's doing the work. They each have their own pain points. So it's understanding those folks, but you still have to connect with them. You have to display loyalty. Those are the same kind of tenets for B2B. You just have to think about who the decision makers are and what their big pain points are and their kind of challenges that you're trying to meet.
Thank
Does that
you.
answer your question?
Yeah, that was great. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Steph, so many of our clients are very small that we work with and often just getting started. What would you recommend are a few of the steps that they take as they're just beginning to think about what their brand means to them?
Sure. Yeah, I think the most important thing that any new business owner can do is really think about their audience, right? And define who it is that they think is going to be their buyer and really getting into their heart and their minds of what's going to matter to them. So if you are starting out as an interior designer, right? And you're thinking, okay, who's going to be my customer? Is it going to be is it somebody that's like a college person that's kind of my style? Or is it going to be more of, do I want to sell my interior design services to other businesses? Is it that I'm trying to I'm selling candles and I'm creating these amazing new organic candles? Like, who are my customers and how am I going to start really kind of getting in their hearts and minds? To me, that's the most important thing. And I think social media is a really good way to interact, right? Because social media is two-way communication. And it's what's made, frankly, our lives that much more interesting, albeit complicated. Used to be that advertisers just got to like send a bunch of messages out through TV and radio and the yellow pages, right? All of these things, and then like hope that somebody saw it and they thought nicely about it. Now you get real-time, direct communication back and forth. And so using social media to really ask questions, take polls, really follow other brands that are similar to yours and see what they're doing, see what you like and don't like, but using them to understand their customers a bit more. I think customer definition is key. And then using social media as a medium to talk to them and get feedback and get more knowledge and kind of firsthand, real-time, in-person, I shouldn't say in-person, but like immediate, direct, like first party data, as we call it, and get that about your customers is the most critical piece. Because then we all may think that we have like the greatest thing to sell. I could be like, this is the greatest notebook ever known to man, and nobody cares about it or wants to buy it, right? So I need to find out who wants that notebook as much as I do. And I have to say, I'm sort of a little obsessed with yellow legal pads. It's like my favorite day of the month when I get to bring out a new legal pad, because I'm 147 years old. So.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Follow up to that question, in perhaps more tactical or practical terms, where do you think an entrepreneur just starting out should focus their energy in all things related to building their brand? What should they be doing?
I think, again, number one is really defining their customer and getting to know their customer in and out. That's the most important thing. So that's where I would focus most of my attention. If I had money, I would research and I would talk to customers. That's 100% what I would do. It's the most important thing. We have clients that are literally multi-million dollar, billion-dollar companies that create new things and nobody wants to buy them because they haven't done the homework. They're like, oh, we created the newest, greatest widget in the world and it does this. And we're like, nobody wants to do that. What, like, okay, did you ask them if they wanted to do that? So even the biggest brands in the world make that mistake because they don't get first party information or really understand the customer. So if I had a little bit of money and I was starting out, or if I had no money, because there's a lot of ways you can do things without money when it comes to talking to people, but that would be the 100% first thing they should do to focus their attention on. As far as like what should they spend their money on creating a logo or coming up with a name or whatever, it depends on the brand, depends on the company, 100%. For some, logo design isn't going to matter, or that they need to invest there, or really have that be the number one thing, right? I would understand your customer and understand your value proposition. Like you understand that customer and you are filling a need, you're solving a problem. That's what companies do, right? What is it about the customer what solutions we need to provide and how can I do that differently? What's my value proposition, and kind of getting that down are probably the two most important things that any business can do. So understand the customer, number one, and then really define your value proposition so that you can articulate that. So when you do have some money, because you're starting to make some money, you're starting to have some sales, then you can start investing in perhaps some advertising or ways to try and kind of spread the news out a little bit more. But I'd say as far as like, what are the key things that I need to build or buy or what have you, is about business cards or a sign or whatever. Totally depends on the business, right? There's some that nobody's going to walk in your door. You don't need a sign, but there's others that foot traffic is going to be the answer to your problems. And that's going to be the thing that's going to cause people to walk in and become your customers. Signage is important. So every business is different as far as the kind of where you want to invest your money.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So I have a bit of an interesting question, I think. So I was talking to a friend who recently founded a marketing company recently. And I asked, and he was having a hard time growing his customer base and his clients. So I asked him, how do you market your marketing service? So I'm going to ask you that. How do you guys market your company as a marketing service?
Sure. Yeah, great question. And keep in mind that we've been around for a long time, right? So this agency is 53 years old. So over time, the answer to that question has changed. But the way that we really focus and really our main strategy as far as getting out there, and I won't share my screen again, but I mentioned to you guys earlier on about our specialty areas, how we have expertise in a few key vertical markets. And again, this goes back to the customer, right? So we have an extraordinary amount of knowledge and expertise in the energy and sustainability field. It's the easiest for me to talk about because it's my area of specialty. And so when we're looking for new customers, we are going to events that they're marketing people who work in the energy field. We get ourselves to sponsor these events. I present at these events. We do paid social advertising where we actually have been attending a lot of virtual events. We just attended a big electric vehicle show last week virtually. And we had our team, because luckily I have these like incredible geniuses that work with me that are like tweeting at other brands and tweeting at people who are presenting. And we're like getting in there and talking about like, if you don't have a marketing firm that has expertise in electric vehicles and in the sustainability world, call us. So that wasn't exactly the message. It was far more elegant than that. But so we're really looking at our differentiator, which is that we know energy better than any other agency. So it's really, again, defining what our value proposition is and what makes us unique. So we're marketing ourselves a lot through events. We do, again, some social media. We do paid search advertising. So people that are searching, if they're looking for like energy marketing company or just marketing firm or what have you, marketing firm in New York or whatever, then we appear. But it's really about focusing in those specialty areas. So we do we replicate that same type of philosophy for our healthcare specialty, for our building and construction specialty, et cetera.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So I would tell your friend to think about what he does that's a little bit different, or who it is that he does it for. So if he's been, a lot of times when you're in a company like that, if it's starting out, he may be doing a lot of work with like restaurants or some, retail brands, t-shirt companies, like those kind of things. Like, what is it that he's doing? And really, I would then try and parlay that into other restaurants, other t-shirt companies, other brands that he's doing things for, and be like, look what I've been able to accomplish for this guy. I can do the same thing for you because I know your customer, I know what makes them tick, and now I can help you kind of have that same success.
Absolutely. That was great. Thank you.
Welcome.
Emily, I'm curious if you have any questions for her. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Sorry. Honestly, I would have asked some of the starting out questions. I have a t-shirt art company,
Awesome.
kind of conglomerate thing that I'm working on. Right now, I'm working on getting my audience figured out. That's definitely what I'm working on right now, because I have people who love my art, but I need to figure out which types of people are the people who are saying, oh, I love your art. I want to see it on this. I want to see it on that.
Yeah. Are you thinking about taking the t-shirt company and creating and using like the artwork on other products, like other merch?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm trying to start an apparel company.
Awesome.
I'm eventually going to build it with other artists. I just bought a bunch of stickers that came in, and I'm getting some t-shirts in soon, so I can start getting pictures up and start getting those out.
That's amazing. So Emily, I'll just mention this as a quick little sidebar. My husband, who James knows pretty well, he's a professor at Lemoyne, but he has a online cooking show, and one of his things is that he loves t-shirts. I mean, it's like drawers and drawers full of t-shirts, and he loves stickers because he's like 14. So, but stickers are amazing. He features them on his water bottles. They're all over cabinets in our garage. If you want, I'd love to see your stuff. If you want to, I'll put my address and my email in the chat. If you want to send something over to me. Yeah, love to see it.
Perfect. I'll send you some of my artwork so you can show him.
Love to see it.
Emily,
I also do custom work on request.
Now you're talking my language. I'll give you my address if you want to mail something. No need to send anything if you don't want, but.
I'll send you one of each of the stickers that I've got for him.
Oh, that'd be great. Oh. There you go. Now y'all can come over and hang out.
If Matt's cooking, yes.
Yeah. Oh, he's an amazing cook.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
I thought that was who her husband was when she said she had an online cooking show.
Oh, yeah. Do you know Matt?
Yeah, actually, I'm in the process. Well, Doug is in the process of setting up a meeting between Matt, him, and I to discuss stuff for the Keenan Center next year.
Oh, cool. Okay. Very cool.
He's actually, he has shown interest in my art in the past. So.
Okay. I'll mention it to him. Great.
And hopefully I'll get those stickers out within the next couple of days. So
great.
That'll be a nice little surprise.
That's great. Thank you. That'll make me look good. Well, thank you guys. I hope this has been time well spent. It was fun for me. If you want me to send over the deck that I shared, I can. If it's not interesting, then don't worry about it. But just let me know, James, one way or the other.
Yeah, no, please do. And we'll share. Obviously, it's in this video too. So that'll be part of it. Great. And thank you for doing this. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Anything for you.
Thank you so much. All the more reason to come over and hang out.
Absolutely.
Good job, Stephanie.
All right.
Thanks, Hugo.
Take care, everybody.
Good to see you again, Meg. Okay. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for speaking. I loved everything you had to say.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
Bye.